In the world of Fallout New Vegas, there are many traits at which you could take at the very start of the game. Some of these are extremely good, others are not as strong, others have some niche purpose. Today we're going to be talking about one of those traits. We are going to be taking a look at Four Eyes. Four Eyes is a trait that is in the base game of Fallout New Vegas. You don't need any sort of DLCs to get it, unlike the traits that are available in the Old World Blues DLC. So just like all the traits in Fallout New Vegas, Four Eyes has a benefit and a penalty. The benefit of taking Four Eyes is that you get +2 perception whenever you're wearing glasses. The downside is that you get -1 to your permanent perception. Now, over the last couple weeks, I've been getting comments on my Fallout traits tier list saying that Four Eyes is a lot better since I said it was one of the worst traits in the entire game. So let's go over some of the arguments that I've heard for Four Eyes and why it is so good. Some of the arguments include the fact that you get more special stats overall. Even if these are temporary stats, that doesn't really matter for your skills. +2 perception, that means that you get 2 more points for every 1 point of your special skills, so this would be 4 points in total for the corresponding skills that this governs, which would be lockpicking, energy weapons, and explosives, which can be good. I don't really know of many people that like to use all of these in combination, but if you're just going to use 1 or 2 of them, then that can be a pretty decent bonus. And we do really have to talk about the downside of Four Eyes, more so than anything. A -1 to your special stats permanently is kind of a big deal. It's usually very difficult to actually get more points added to your special skills. There is a couple ways to do this. You get one for finishing the Lonesome Road DLC, but you have to finish the entire DLC to get this one. You can also take the Intense Training perk, but that does require you to take one of your perk points and use it towards that skill. There is also the fact that all of your special stats govern something else besides just the skills that they're associated with. A good example of this would be something like Strength. Strength governs your melee weapons, so it depends on how hard you can hit with melee weapons, but it also determines how much weight you can carry in the game, which can be a pretty important stat. If you want to be carrying around more, especially if you're a loot goblin and just like grabbing everything in the wasteland, having more strength is pretty important. So that brings up the major question of what does perception govern? And it only governs one thing, and that's this. That's all that it changes. So on your compass, you can tell how far away an enemy or an ally is, and the more perception you have, the further away you can potentially see that enemy on your compass. This usually does not help you in any significant way during a fight or before a fight, because you can usually visually see if there's enemies or potential enemies, and that kind of brings me to the reason why I don't think Four Eyes is a very good trait in Fallout New Vegas, because just upping perception is not good enough to make it a trait. You only get 2 traits throughout the entire game, and you have to stay with those 2 traits for the entire game, with 2 exceptions. Once where you can respec them outside of Goodsprings, and then once again in Old World Blues, where you can talk to the auto dock, which will allow you to change your traits to something else. Having access to only 2 of them makes it so you have to compare all of them to one another. Buffing up a special stat does seem good. The main problem is the special stat is perception, and in my opinion, perception is the second weakest special stat in the entire game. There's no reason to buff it any higher than it already is. Basically, the only reason you're going to put any points into perception is just to get perks. That's the only reason to do it. And realistically, if better crits didn't exist in this game, there really wouldn't be a reason to put much perception into any build. There's only 7 perks in total that rely on some level of perception. Friend of Night, which gives you night vision, which is not really that great. There's a cam in the game that lets you do the same, and night vision scopes let you do the same, as well as a mask that lets you do the same thing. It is low leveled, which is one of its advantages. Alertness, which is just to buff your perception further, which is pretty garbage because we've already explained that perception's not that great. Sniper, which is actually a pretty decent perk if you like going with a VATS build, but if you're not using VATS, then it doesn't really help you. Hobbler, which is another bad skill that just doesn't really give you much advantage. You're usually not going to be shooting for limbs if you're going for a VATS build. Light Step, which is actually pretty useful, especially in the Sierra Madre. Better Crits, which I said is probably one of the best perks in the entire game. And Infiltrator, which is a perk that nobody should take because it's completely useless on basically every build. So with Perception only having 3 really useful perks, it usually doesn't help to have more than, say, 5. because you can always get one from the implant that you can get in New Vegas. And with Four Eyes reducing your overall permanent points, you're going to need to put more points towards it if you want these perks. If you don't want these perks, then why would you take anything in Perception anyway? One argument that I've heard that doesn't really make sense is someone saying that they're building for a sniper build, so they should have more Perception. A sniper build really doesn't benefit from perception though. It did in the older Fallout games, in Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics. Then perception actually did determine the effective distance that you could shoot a weapon. In any of the first-person games, in Fallout 3, New Vegas, 4, and I believe 76, it doesn't really matter. So long as you can see the target and so long as you can shoot straight at the target, you'll be able to hit it. This doesn't affect spread either. So dumping points into perception makes no sense for a sniper build. It would make a lot more sense if you're going to go with something with agility, because you can have faster reloads and more action points there, or take something like luck, which just gives you a higher crit chance and gives you more points to all of your skills. And just buffing your perception with the idea that you're just going to get more lock picking or some of the other skills doesn't really make a whole lot of sense either. Buffing intelligence would be better for that because you can just get more skill points and throw them in those stats. Or you could always go with some of the perks like comprehension, which doubles the magazine usefulness, allowing you to have up to plus 20 lockpicking just from that. So in conclusion, I don't think Four Eyes is a very good trait overall just to be taking. If you're going with a sniper build, there's better options. You could go with fast hands, you could go with skilled, you could go with small frame. All of those traits are better for just combat reasons. If you're just trying to take this just to up your skills, then the skill trait is far, far better than this one. You could also just take good-natured, which would also be better for this one if you're just looking for extra uses of other non-combat skills, or if you only want to specialize in one combat skill. The only place that Four Eyes kind of fits, in my opinion, would be in somewhat of a meme build. If you're purposely trying to go with like a nerd rage build and just trying to build your character as an angry nerd or something, Four Eyes would work thematically for that, but at that point, you're not really building for a combat-oriented build or a non-combat-oriented build. You're just kind of building for a character-driven build, which is perfectly fine. And if you really like Four Eyes just for that reason, and there's nothing I can say to stop you from taking Four Eyes, then by all means take it and enjoy it. It's just that I don't think this trait is nearly as useful as certain other people do. And maybe that's through misconceptions, thinking that perception does affect things like sniper rifles, which it doesn't, and other playstyles, which it rarely does. If you'd like to see me talk about more Fallout skills or traits in any sort of way, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. I would love to read through them. And if you'd like to see some of my other content on Fallout, be sure to click on this playlist right over here.